Assalamualaikum students of class 8. This is Mukhtar sir on online classes of FEI for Other Education Institute. Today's topic is When People Rebel 1857 and After. It is a lesson number 5 of subject history. We start with introduction. When the Britishers established the rule, it is rule in India, the maximum part of India was under the Britishers up to 1857. They affected the lives of Indian people negatively. Every single part of the society, every single corner of the society were affected negatively by the British administration. It is not only the kings, landlords, peasants, Nawabs, etc. Many people revolt against the British policies, and the kings Nawabs, they have already lost their power, authority and dignity under the British rule. British residents were also stationed in courts of the rulers to monitor proceedings, because these residents were there in the courts of the rulers to monitor the activities. And their armies, the Nawabs armies, rulers armies were disbanded, their freedom was reduced, and the territories were seized also. Nawabs lost their powers in the mid 18th century. It is witnessed, mid 18th century is witnessed, Nawabs, Rajas lost their power, honor, dignity, etc. Their freedom were also reduced, armies were also disbanded. It is already mentioned to you by number of reasons. Step by step, the British East India Company took away their territories, revenues, etc. Ruling families particularly failed to negotiate with the company to protect their interests. Particularly, for example, Rani Laxmi Bai wanted her adopted son to be recognized as the heir to the kingdom. And another example, Nana Sahab, adopted son of Peshwa Bajirao, also tried to get pension of his father, but the company denied. Annexation of Awadh is another important part in the history of India. In 1801, a subsidiary alliance was imposed on Awadh. In 1856, it was finally, fully taken over by the Britishers, and misrule was the reason for annexation of Awadh. British plan to end this Mughal dynasty. It was the motive behind making the policies on Indian lands to end the Mughal dynasty in India. For that very reason, for that very thing, the Britishers removed the names of Mughal rulers, from the coinage. In 1849, Governor General Dalhousie announced after the death of Bahadur Shah Zafar, his family would be shifted to somewhere else from the Red Fort. Another Governor General Canning, 1856, declared Bahadur Shah Zafar would be the last Mughal king, and there will be no king after the Bahadur Shah Zafar, who claim as a king of Mughal dynasty, and the descendants would be simply called as princes. The peasants and sepoys, another section of the society, two important sections rather in the society after these Nawabs and all that. Peasants were not happy due to the high taxation introduced by the Britishers. Their methods were also rigid and all that. Some peasants lost their lands because of not due to the failure of repay of their loans. The sepoys, Indian soldiers who are then in the British army, were also not happy with the attitude, the low salary given to them by the British administration. They were not equally treated in the British army. In 1857, a law was passed for the these Indian sepoys in the British army, that if they must serve the Britishers overseas if required. And the Hindus believed crossing seas would lose their religion and caste. Such rules definitely hurt the Indian soldiers. And afterwards, some positive aspects associated as far as the British rule is concerned. British took several reform steps for the Indian society. To number one, sati was banned. It was one of the most important steps took over by the Britishers. Widows' remarriage were legalized by the Britishers, and after 1830, Christian missionaries were also allowed to function freely in different parts of the country. And after 1850, a law was passed who converted to Christianity. It was law passed by the Britishers. Those people who converted to Christianity would inherit their ancestors' land. Indian felt because of all these policies made by the Britishers, the Indian people felt that these Britishers are basically trying to destroy their religion, traditional life, custom, etc. But some Indians were in favor of these things, so that they want to get rid of many social evils from the Indian society. Now the mutiny changes into popular rebellion. Mutiny is basically a situation where soldiers or sailors refuse to obey the orders from the higher authorities. In 1857, there was a mutiny by the Indian soldiers in Meerut. Later, different sections of the society also became the part of this rebellion. Mangal Pandey, a well-known soldier in the British Army, was hanged by the Britishers on 29th of March 1857 because he attacked his officer at Barakpura. Few days later, 85 sepoys also refused to use the new cottage which was suspected by coated with the cow and pig fats, and these soldiers were first dismissed, then jailed for 10 years. This happened on 9th of May. On 10th of May, other soldiers attacked the jail, killed the British officers, captured the ammunition, and set fire to the building. And all these soldiers who mutinied declared war against the Ferengis or Britishers. On 10th of May, all these soldiers from Meerut rode throughout night and reached the Delhi next day, gathered around the Red Fort and proclaimed Bahadur Shah Zafar as their leader. At first instance, Bahadur Shah Zafar, he was not basically interested to be the part of this rebellion because he was well aware about the power of the Britishers, but he had no choice. He wrote letters to the chiefs, asked them to be the part of this rebellion. The chieftains agreed as they wanted to get back their territories taken over by the Britishers. Bahadur Shah Zafar's participation in the rebellion changed the entire situation, and his participation gave enthusiasm to the peoples, local peoples, these chieftains, and all the other peoples also. People eagerly wanted to be the part of this rebellion. When this rebellion starts, in first instance, rebellion spread, and afterwards, regiment after regiment mutinied. People from towns, villages, zamindars, local people find an opportunity to assert their authority. Nana Sahab, one of the most important known figure in the Indian history, expelled the British garrison at Kanpur. He attacked the garrison and declared himself as the governor under Mughal emperor. Another example, Birjis Qadir, he was the son of this Wajid Ali Shah. He also proclaimed himself as the Nawab of Lucknow. Rani Laxmi Bai, another example, he also joined the rebel along with Tatya Tope against the Britishers. Tatya Tope was the general of Nana Sahib. In the starting of rebellion, Britishers were lost. They lost number of battles against this rebels. This gave a kind of confidence to the people to join the rebel. Rebellion is witnessed to rise of new leaders. In this very time, in the 1857 war, new faces came in the scene. Number one, Ahmadullah Shah, a Maulvi from Faizabad, is one of the important figure of 1857 revolt. Religious Ghazis or the warriors from the Delhi also joined this first war of independence. Bhagat Khan, a soldier from Bareilly, also joined. Kumar Singh, an old Zamindar from Bihar, joined this battle. Now the Britishers starting for counter-attacking the rebel. Company decided to suppress the revolt with all its might. For that very thing, They asked for reinforcement, and reinforcement were brought from England. Company focused firstly on the main centers of the revolt, and afterwards company forces moved to main centers of revolt. Delhi was first captured in September 1857. Bahadur Zafar was arrested and sentenced to life imprisonment. His sons were shot dead before his eyes. In October 1858, he was sent to the Rangoon in Myanmar, which is in Myanmar, with his wife, where he died in 1862. At least it took 2 years to Britishers to control the whole situation, which arises in the 1857. Lucknow was captured in March 1858, and Laxmi was killed in June 1858 in a battle with Britishers. Tatya Topi, the governor, this general of Nana Sahib, he escaped to the forests of the central India and continued his guerrilla warfare style against the Britishers with the help of the tribal people which is there in the jungles of the central India. But ultimately, at last, he captured and killed by the Britishers in April 1859. After the 1857 revolt, there are some pointers which are necessary to discuss over here. Britishers tried to win back the loyalty of the people, and Britishers announced that to the rebels, if they submitted to British and not killed any British, they would remain safe. Hundreds of sepoys, rebels, Nawabs and Rajas were hanged, first tried and then hanged. The power of East India Company transferred to British Crown. Now British Crown became the ruler of India. The title of Governor General changed to Viceroy. Viceroy is basically the representative of British Crown in India. British government accepted the responsibility of ruling India. Ruling chiefs were assured. It was announcement made by the British government to the ruling chiefs that their territories would remain safe. They will never be annexed in future, and their kingdom they could pass their kingdoms to their heirs, including adopted sons. Now look at the mentality of the Britishers towards the Muslims. Muslims were taken with suspicion and hostility, and their property was confiscated on a large scale because Britishers believed the main culprits behind the revolt of 1857 were the Muslims. Respect will be given. Another announcement made by the Britishers: respect will be given to religious and social practices or activities. The motive behind all this was to win back the loyalty of the Indian people, and thus a new phase after 1857, after the First World War of Independence, a new phase of history, Indian history begins. So this is all about this lesson. Be safe and Khuda Hafiz. Thank you very much.